Yeah, I think we'll begin now. So first off, I'd like to, thank everyone for attending and also welcome our speakers as well. So this is the Lighthouse series, the second edition actually, the first one being the Legal Lighthouse. So the Lighthouse series, as I'm sure many of you have been seeing for the past couple of minutes, is a series that shines light on sharp expert panel-led topics on what really matters to help guide founders cut through the noise, rise above the fog, and make informed decisions faster. Now, for this session in particular, our speakers will be discussing building with blockchain, the strategic agenda for startups. So this session will be covering and exploring how blockchain as an industry agnostic technology can be applied across the startup lifecycle from validation to global scaling. So here are our speakers, although when it comes to introductions, Saqr, I'll leave it to you.
All right, wonderful. I'm very, very excited to be here with you guys to talk about something that's very close to my heart with two friends of mine, actually. So Frank on one side is a guy that's built products throughout his life as the CTO, many days being directly in the driving seat of this front-facing technology. And for all I know, Anton is the most successful entrepreneur in Web3 that has recently relocated to Dubai. Both gentlemen I have the pleasure of knowing for a couple of years now. I'm very happy to be here with you. And when it comes to me, my name is Saqr, and I've written my name next to blockchain in blood way too early, actually earlier than I care to admit. But the beauty of it is that I get to then be here and share knowledge with you guys. So the purpose of this session really is to bring you people that have done this. This isn't a theory conversation. This isn't something that is essentially would be beautiful if Anton, for all I can count, I think, is it four successful startups in the space? 5 or 4, 6? Yeah, something like that. 4, right? Okay. And then Frank has been part of some of the leading initiatives here in the region, and most recently was the Chief Technology Officer of Rain. Personally, I'm today serving as the Secretary General of the only digital asset association in the region that is currently active and not for profit. And I've had the pleasure to advise governments and large institutions on this place. The idea is these guys, and I'm proud to call myself a friend, and in that same bucket, have actually done this. This isn't something that they're coming to share with you because they have some book knowledge. No, they've gone down this route. They've been successful, they fell down, they got back up, and they're here today to share with you how what we all believe is blockchain is a transformative technology that will cut across all industries. And personally, and I'm not sure if my colleagues will agree, personally, I believe it's a once in a generation opportunity. Not with discounting that AI isn't similarly large, but AI was in the making quite long, and AI has been around for 50 years, whereas blockchain really, as a technology, as a concept, as we know it today, is only a couple of years old. With that, we're going to talk about how you validate with confidence, how you launch with trust, and how you grow with decentralization. We're not here to give a lecture, guys. If you're on this call, then feel free to jump in. Feel free to ask a question, raise your hand. We're not here to just talk at you. The idea is that we're here to support you. Each one of us is a mentor in the Ignyte ecosystem and working actively towards your success. Actually, I said that. I'm not sure if Anton is yet, but if not, then after this session, hopefully we'll onboard him. And with that, I know these guys personally, and they're the most helpful type of people you will know. And feel free to use that time for you. Yes, we will share knowledge, but the idea is that we want this to be as an interactive session. Anton, Frank, anything to add from you before we jump in?
No, I think you covered a really good introduction. So thanks very much, Anton. Anything? Yeah, likewise. I think a great introduction. And Saqr, you're a dear friend of mine. So for everyone listening, the first person that I met when I came to Dubai for the first time was you. And, glad to be friends with you for so long and colleague. And I am a mentor at Ignyte. I saw the beautiful poster, the biggest one I have seen in Dubai with you on it. And then I walked into Ignyte office and said, if Saqr is a mentor here, I want to be a mentor as well. And I pray one day maybe I also can be next to you on the poster. So
I'm very happy to hear that. And, thank you for the shout out, Anton. I'm very proud to call both of you friends and to be building in this fantastic space together. And, I'm quite excited. There's little people that I could think of that have as much knowledge as Anton and Frank, and are as generous with sharing their knowledge. So I'm really happy that we have these guys here. And I want to kick this off. So the format we're going to follow for the next 60 to 90 minutes is essentially one of us is going to give a bit of a quote unquote keynote. Then the three of us will discuss this. And for all intents and purposes, whenever you guys want to jump in, please do. But we'll open this up at the end of it. At the end of every bit, we're opening this up for questions. Feel free to post your questions in the chat. Keenan, if I can ask you to help us with the chat, that'll be great. And with that, I wanna open the floor to Frank, who's going to talk about validate with confidence. Please go ahead, Frank.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Saqr. Before I start, though, there is a story about how I met Saqr, but we don't have enough time for that. So remember to ask me when you meet me. How did we meet? Exactly. Anyway, right. So look, the first theme we're going to talk about is, how as entrepreneurs and founders, how can we validate that the blockchain powered startup, because I don't want to say the blockchain startup, right? Blockchain is a technology that powers our startups. How can we validate that the business models that we're building are fit for purpose? And how do we do that? Focusing on the journey of our customers through our apps and our ecosystem. So that's the theme that we're going to cover in this section. I have a few slides that's all pictures, so hopefully we can go through them quickly. I want to start off by sharing or highlighting some common red flags that I've come across a lot just talking to fellow founders. And I want to see whether you have come across these as well, right? So the first one is obvious, right? Blockchain for blockchain's sake. There's a lot of blockchain startups out there. Sometimes you hear their business models, you hear their elevator pitches, and you ask yourself, how does actually blockchain make this better? Another one is for applications that have a tokenomics model behind them. Tokenomics really is there to give you a way to structure your blockchain tokenomics so that you can provide utility to your user base, right? But sometimes tokenomics come across are very, very complex, right? You need a PhD level economics lecturer to explain them to you. That usually is a red flag. The third is regulatory blindness. A lot of blockchain startups start off in the unregulated space because it's an idea, building an MVP, but ultimately a lot of them end up in the regulated space where they either holding assets on behalf of someone, facilitating the exchange of assets between two people, allowing users to swap between assets. All of these are regulated areas, right? So understanding what your long-term vision is super important. Then, common question: who's your target addressable market? Oh, the whole world. That's a very interesting one. I love hearing that. But having no clear audience definition, for me is a red flag. And then the last one is a speculation dependent model. We all know the origins of crypto. We've all come across or have degen friends who just speculate on the markets. There is a place for that. But if that's all your model is based on your token price going up, then you might have a problem down the line. So these are 5 red flags that I have come across. How many? Just show by hands in the chat. How many of these have you seen in pitches? Let's see how many people show their hands. 2 hands, all toes included, right? Yeah. So I'm sure
there's so many of those.
Yes, exactly. I'm guilty as well, right? So there's many more, but I wanted to just sort of set the scene with these, so we're thinking about these as we go through this. All right. So the next flag, sorry, it's not the next flag. The next slide, I'd like to introduce a framework. Many of you would know this. This is a framework that was introduced by a guy called Dave McClure, one of the founders of 500 Startups, right? So the R, or the Pirate Metrics framework, is a customer lifecycle tracking framework, right? It has 5 stages. The R, is where it got its pirate name from, but it just allows marketing, product management, growth, and customer experience professionals to track the customer's journey through their journey through the application. Ultimately, it starts from acquisition when they find you or you find them. It ends with you taking some money off them for a service, right? And in between, you have to get them to take the first action. You have to keep them coming back. And ideally, you want them to bring their friends. So it's a very simple framework. Why is it relevant here? I believe that, blockchain projects often focus too much on the token price going up instead of satisfying the user, focusing on fundamentals, right? So by following this framework, in your own work, but in this talk, it will help us to validate the customer's journey through our application and give us that confidence that we know that we're doing the right thing, because the metrics, and we'll talk about them at the end, are actually going in the right direction. Okay, so that's the purpose of using this as a backdrop. So let's start with the first stage, which is acquisition. How do you discover your customers, or how do they find you? Okay. The problem here is, you have to put out a clear message out there, so that, when I read your ad on a social media platform, or I see it on LinkedIn, it's clear that you're talking to me, right? So clarity of the problem is super important. Some of the validation checkpoints, you could use are, can you explain your problem in a clear sentence, or the better pitch? What pain points does your problem fix, right? Can I relate to it? Is it relevant in this region? And exactly that. Is blockchain necessary, right? I usually argue that, blockchain is like TCP/IP, right? Or it's like a network, right? When you talk about, or is like a data storage. When you're talking about solving user problem, you don't throw these technical buzzwords in there, right? They're all behind the scenes making the experience what it is, but we don't talk about them. But we're very eager to talk about the fact that it's a blockchain powered app, right? So it's super important to be aware that these things, might be putting your users off. The other side is, okay, now you've got a group of people who are keen to use your app. It's important to have some real conversations with a potential subset to get their views, right? So how do you measure that? Have you actually had some real conversations with potential users, and have they told you that this is going to solve the problem for them, right? You thinking you have a killer idea is good, but that's normally not the best way to go about this. Using crypto native channels where the customers are is also a good, way to validate your idea. Put the idea out there. Don't say you're starting a startup, but find a way to seed it out there, get a conversation going, and then use that feedback to drive your decisions. The third point here is, what are the alternatives, right? If you are creating a category defining startup, right? What I call, you create something in the blue ocean. What are the alternatives? You might say there's none, okay, which is fantastic, but the people are actually solving the problem one way or the other, maybe inefficiently or very expensively. So you need to understand the alternative before you can actually solve the problem, right? So this is what I call the problem clarity challenge. There's several acquisition strategies. I won't bore you with them. You probably know all these already. But for specifically for blockchain companies, I think community-led growth is important, because blockchain and crypto is a community-powered ecosystem, right? These communities are congregating on places like Discord, Telegram, Reddit. So using community-led growth and engaging those communities is super important. Ultimately, creating your own community so that the people are coming to you to talk about your product. Okay, content marketing, if it's a category defining product, like I said, you have to educate, right? So putting articles out there, tutorials, explainers in layman's terms, right? What I'm saying is blockchain powered is super important. Partnerships is also important. Obviously, every blockchain project runs on a layer one. So partnering with the other projects, the protocols and influencers in the space will expand your reach, and help you to validate, your ideas. Right? And then the last one is, putting the idea out on a test net, right? And running beta programs way ahead of your actual launch will also help you validate your ideas. The next stage is the activation stage, right? So now people know about you. How do you get those who take a first meaningful action? We all know what MVP stands for, right? But for your MVP, can you describe what you do in the center? Let's say we help X to do Y using blockchain so they can do Z. The user blockchain bit is you normally the put off, right? Because you don't have to say that. If you help X to do Y so they can do Z, it's good enough, right? How is using blockchain, but usually the how, is not necessary as a why that you exist. That's important, okay? The second thing is that, if your MVP cannot be built in 3 to 6 months, then you are probably over-engineering the solution. The third, which is the most important question that a lot of people don't ask, does using crypto or blockchain mechanics actually make it better, cheaper, or more trustworthy? I think we've all seen, that the crypto or the Web3 community is very enthusiastic, myself included, about the technology and its benefits. But we're solving problems for people who are not as tech savvy as we are, right? So asking this question is important, and making sure that we're actually adding value and not just using technology for technology's sake is also super important. The other thing is obviously making sure that the onboarding is as friction free as possible. It's super important. Onboarding in Web3 includes wallet connectivity and all of that stuff. We need to try and abstract it as much as we can because it's quite difficult for non-technical people to. So let's look at activation triggers, right? Typical activation triggers in the blockchain space. Wallet connect, right? If you can build a one-click wallet connect without all the different steps, that will put you ahead of the pack. If you can reduce the transaction fees for the actions that people take on your app, that will reduce the friction as well. Obviously, MENA is a very mobile first market, right? So you need to know what mobile platforms your largest part of your customer base is on, and focus on that to start with, right? So these are all metrics that you need to find. But the most important success metric is, what is the aha moment or the aha action that somebody takes on your app? The first time I make a trade, the first time I stake my crypto, or the first time I vote on some DAO governance panel, right? So super important to be clear what that first action is. And your idea is you take your acquired users and you funnel them to take that first action as soon as possible. Okay. The next is retention. How do you keep them coming back? Usually the signals are, on-chain activity, return behavior, daily active users, weekly active, monthly actives. That cycle of coming back to take those actions or to check on something on your app is super, super important. So if you can track that metric, it's a real validating whether you're doing the right thing by them or not. For instance, 100 engaged users is better than 10,000 dormant wallets, right? Because there's ways to, get those wallets to join your community. And the most important thing is, if your app or your ecosystem, the value of it increases as more people join, then it's super important to create a network effect and introduce virality to how you acquire your users and how you retain them. So motivation is a very, very important part of successful web and blockchain apps, right? The two main categories here. You got to keep it surprising, right? So how do you vary your rewards, right? Some examples here. I won't read them. The other thing is how do you build in switching costs without being too mercenary? Okay, so those are two areas that you can look at. Ideally, what will bring your users back every week? Yeah, is what you need to test and validate. Okay. Then the last one is referrals. How do you build viral growth and network effects into your actual application? To do that, you can use user-driven sharing. If that natural mechanic is in there, you can help your users form communities on your app. Create self-organizing groups. Question you need to ask is, does each new user you add make things better for the existing users, right? Does that user bring something that everybody can benefit from? And how do you publicize that to your community, and how do you measure that, right? It's super important. Um, there's several referral mechanics that most Web3 founders will know about. Using token incentives, creating DAOs, NFTs, and DAO governance models. These are all incentives. But the key question that you need to answer is, would you, as the founder, personally recommend what you're building to a friend? Right? Forget all of the mechanics. Are you proud enough? Does it actually solve a problem that somebody who has, and will you refer it? If you can't answer that question yourself, then you've got to sort of ask yourself a few tough questions about what you're building. Then the last but not the least is revenue, right? Ultimately, we're all building these startups to make money, right? It's important that your business model clarity is upfront, right? From day one, you need to know how you're going to make money, right? From your first 10 users, you're not going to make $1 million, but the smallest unit of revenue should be clear from your launch, right? How are you going to make it viable before you scale? Okay. Is your tokenomics sustainable, right? Is it purely speculative, or is there real utility? Right? Are people going to be rewarded for things they do or value they bring, as opposed to eventually launching on a DEX and going to the moon, as we all say. And the most important thing is regionally, how can you adapt it, for local consumption before global expansion. We all want to build global billion-dollar startups, but it's always good to serve where you're building it first. So the challenge here is, can you explain your monetization strategy in one sentence? And that's a question that you need to ask yourself. The other thing here is the different options for making revenue from blockchain apps, right? Transaction fees is the common one. Subscription for SaaS is another. A token utility I talked about, it's a very important one. It's a difficult one to get right, but it's a very important one. And then obviously marketplace commissions, and ultimately, if you can make it B2B, enterprise licensing could also be a source of revenue. So these should be clear from the start. You might not do all of them at once. You might start with a simple one, but that evolution of your model towards the more mature stream options is important that you understand upfront, and you have metrics of validating if you are making the right steps towards that eventual revenue stream, which becomes your main one. Okay. So the last point before I summarize is, and you will all know this, right? You come up with a great idea, you put a few hours in, you get some seed funding, and then you realize that the idea isn't actually ready for its time, or it doesn't actually work, right? A lot of founders will bang their heads against the wall until there's nothing left. But you should build the ability to pivot into your model, right? You shouldn't go down a rabbit hole knowingly, right? Because it is possible that as you validate the different hypotheses of your product, you will have to make changes. I have a colleague who's pivoted 4 or 5 times in the same startup, right? And every time he's pitched it to me, I've been convinced I want to put money in. He's pivoted 5 times and he's still going, right? So pivoting is the name of the game. Don't be scared of it, but build that into your model, build that into your plans, because it's inevitable. You might have to pivot for regulatory reasons. You might have to pivot, because the chain you decided to build on, has gone under for different reasons, right? So it's super important to keep that in mind as you take the journey. So I'd like to summarize by just sharing the actual metrics for using to track and validate the different steps of the 5-stage customer journey, right? So from on the acquisition side, cost per wallet connection, source of users, problem resolution, fit score is one. Activation, time to first meaningful action is super important. You're trying to shorten that, right? You're trying to make the user take that action that hooks them early. How many people complete onboarding, right? They sign up, but do they actually give you the information? Do they go through KYC, right? Retention metrics, how many people are coming back daily, weekly, monthly, all of that is pretty standard. And then on the revenue side, right, how much money are you making per user? What is the user's, lifetime value? How long will they stay with you? And averagely, how much will you make? And how long is it going to take you to pay back the money you're investing here, right? So these are not exhaustive, but these are some solid metrics that if you keep in mind from the word go and focus on the customer as they go through these steps and test at each stage, then you will have a framework that, allows you to successfully validate and guide your steps on the startup journey. So the final reality check here, right? In crypto, everybody talks about going to the moon, right? But smart founders focus on getting users to come back tomorrow, because that's the only way that those startups will survive. Okay. So the hard truth is that most blockchain projects fail because they skip straight to revenue, right? Stoking speculation without really validating these steps that we've talked here. Each step is important. They happen in sequence. So it's important that you go through these even as you build your startup. You understand each step, you understand how to measure, you understand how to test, and then you understand how to pivot if what you're testing isn't working before you go down the rabbit hole too far. So the recommendation is, build the funnel in order, okay? Measure each stage, and then optimize for the bottlenecks that you find before you go all in, okay? So with that, I'll pause. Saqr,
Thank you,
Anton,
Frank.
can you add some context there, please? Thank you.
First things first. Which tool did you use for your presentation?
Gamma.
Yeah, all right, cool. I haven't used that. That presentation looks good, so you recommend it to me. Second,
Okay.
because you did say recommendation, build the funnel, and go to or leave thinking about revenue later. Would you really think about revenue last?
No, you wouldn't think about it last, right? Your model will have revenue clearly mapped out, right?
Yeah.
But you
Because I
get
must
your
admit,
customers
I've done the
through.
mistake of
Yeah,
building
yeah.
great things and then later thinking about revenue.
Yeah.
And good intentions and hope don't pay the bills.
Yeah.
And I have good
So you
intention
see,
of hope for an entire city. So I can sing you a
see
song
the
about it.
first point. The first one about the business model clarity, right? Day one revenue, right? You've got to be clear how you're going to make your money from the beginning. You might not make it at the beginning, but you've still got to bring your users in and convince them to spend the money, right?
Anton, I'd love to hear from you. You're a serial founder. Not necessarily just on what Frank said, maybe also your own point of view on, how you validate something. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So first, Frank, this presentation has been amazing. So I was very impressed, and a great job.
Thank you.
And I think you covered. You really were exhaustive in covering what guidance should founders have as they're kind of going out, building the products, trying to acquire the first client. I will make some small remarks, and because you did a really great job. So first, what I would advise to the startup, but this is a personal preference, don't be hesitant, don't be shy selling a product that doesn't exist yet. This is also a form of validation. Now, when you might have heard me now and you say, Anton, as you are an entrepreneur, how can you go around and sell stuff you don't have, right? You're a bad guy. You're not supposed to do that, right? But you have to be also very practical in the early days of your startup, knowing that the money is tight. Usually not everybody gets 100 million, 10 million seed round, and then you go and start playing around. Usually it's friends and family, people that trust you, they know you very well, they give you a bit of money, and then you're trying to build a product that somebody might be willing to use and maybe pay for, right? And I had this block. Actually, it was really a block in my mind when I was in my early days of the first startup. I would say, how can we go out and pitch something that doesn't exist? But you're pitching it as a product that's ready to be sold now and used now. And I remember when I was talking to my partner, who was a lot older than me in my first co-founder in my first startup, who had no shame, who would really go out and pitch as if something was working and it was functioning and it was ready to be used. But then he explained to me, he said, his name is Richard Olson. He said, Anton, pitching a product, even if it doesn't exist, and getting feedback from potential client is a form of validation. This is what Frank was actually explaining very well. Imagine you are pitching a product as if it's ready, as if it's done. And you pitch it to 100 people. And 100 people say, Anton, this is the worst idea I have heard in my life. I would never pay you for this garbage product. This is amazing input. This is amazing. Yeah. You should be celebrating. You say, let's not build that then. Now imagine, then you build, you want to build something and you go out and you pitch to 100 people. And not all 100 will say yes, but let's say 20 come and say, wow, this is amazing. Can we start tomorrow? And then you can tell them, yes, I would love to put you, but I have a big queue. There's so many clients lined up that maybe I can put you in 1-2 months, after the queue clears up. And then in this 1-2 months, you rush to build something that you can show to the client.
Yeah. In 3 months, yes.
Yeah, so this is really like the one point that I would mention. Do not, you have launched a startup. You have no money. You have no clients. Nobody believes in you. You should have no shame. No shame. No shame pitching whatever you want to do. Just to say, no shame. Of course, don't break the rules. Don't be disrespectful. Don't break the law. But you should really be as humble as you can. And everybody knows you have no money and no product and no clients, by the way. So, and in my second company that I started, or third, who's counting, I actually lost my shame. So I would go out. I was running a market-making company. Saqr, you know what that very means. And I would go and I would pitch. People would tell me, Anton, are you connected and trading on Binance? I said, of course we are. We have a long track record there. We were not even, the guys could not even connect in a week if we had to connect to Binance to start provide our market making service. So I lost the shame. And today I have no shame, as I'm seeing it as a part of exploration, as a part of learning process, getting feedback and not going down the path of bidding a product that nobody wants, because that means I'm spending the investors' money very unwisely. Okay, so that's what I would just advise. And maybe another just small point. Because it's something Saqr you also flagged, is thinking about economics and revenues. Now, even though you don't know how your product will look like, and I can assure you, if you show me the first pitch deck, then you show it to me after 2 years, I will always tell you this is not the same product you showed me 2 years ago. This is actually, even all my startups, I would then look at the pitch deck after 2 years and I'll be, wow, this is not same people, but different startup completely. It's completely different. So you cannot know how you're going to make money. You're not going to know how this will work out, but the investors will look at that. And there is something famous in venture investing called triple, triple, double, double. So 3, 3, 2, 2. What does it mean? Investors look from the point that you're earning $1 million per year. From that moment to make you a unicorn, in their mind, in 4 years, you should achieve the following. In the first year, you should triple the revenues. In the second year, you should triple the revenues. In the third, you should double the revenues. And the fourth year, you should double the revenues. And by standard multiples, at that point, you're a unicorn. Okay. Triple, triple, double, double. 3, 3, 2, 2.
Say that one more time, because I'm writing here.
Yeah.
So triple
the
revenue.
Triple, double, double, So 3x, 3x, 2x, 2x. So if you are at that phase when you have $1 million in annual revenues, means like a lot of people are paying for your product. Like it's good. It works. It's fine. In 4 years, you should then first year triple the revenue, second year triple the revenue, third year double the revenue, fourth year double the revenue. After 4 years, you're a unicorn by standard VC metrics. Why is this important? Because when you model your revenues, you have to think, is this even realistic? Can I triple, triple, double, double? Or you need to take a look and say, this is impossible. Right. Because if you say this is impossible, then I can assure you every VC will look at this and say, this is impossible. We're not investing into this garbage. So it's, even though you don't know how this will look like, you have to close your eyes. First open the Excel spreadsheet, then write the numbers, and then close your eyes, and then say, yes, I can imagine this happening. So again, it's whatever business model you think at the beginning will be the case, it will not be the case. But when you're pitching to investors, you should understand that they have certain metrics in mind. And if you don't have those certain metrics presented to them, in their mind, you will be eliminated as a candidate for a venture investment. That doesn't mean you cannot get money from friends and family offices, I don't know, like different kind of investors, but VC investors look for this kind of stuff. And maybe I can pause now, pass the work to you, Saqr. But I mean, Frank, you did such an amazing job. I have nothing to say.
I learned a couple of things from both you and Frank, right? I love the R framework, Frank, and I'll forever reference the R framework. And triple, double. I see myself writing about this. So I always knew about. I never knew triple, double. I knew the 3x, the 3x, the 2x, the 2x. I've never heard it explained as triple, double. So I love it. And with that, I think Frank, you've done really an amazing job and maybe even answering some questions for the future sessions. But I'm looking at a bunch of letters in front of me. I see IM, I see SH, I see LN, I see KP. So KP is Keval Pendoria. And there's a bunch of people in the room here. Guts, thanks for being one of the few that actually has the camera on. We'd love to see you, but even more so, we'd love to hear from you. Are there any questions that you have for these guys that, and I'm here on the panel with them, but I'm still learning from them. So I'm sure they're of value to you as well. Do you have any questions before we proceed?
Perhaps what would help is getting one or two practical examples from your life of going through this acquisition, activation, retention, and referral phase, because that I think will help to put reference points in. And you were already saying this is not a straight line, and pivoting is part of the game, like in any startup. But it would be interesting to just get one or two examples from real life setups you have built or helped building. Thanks.
Cool. Anyone wants to take a first stab?
Yeah, maybe I can. Frank, do you want to take the lead? Or?
No. You take it. Let me take a breath, and then I'll jump in after you.
Yeah. So first, I want to say is actually that Frank has really amazingly described, like what's the process, how you acquire clients, and I think he even kind of added there is more than one way to acquire a client, because intuitively, how you think I could acquire clients, like I could go directly talk to you, right? And then I can convince you, or actually you convince yourself. It doesn't really, I don't never convince you, you convince yourself, and then you become a client. Let's say I'm selling to you as a business, right? Or for instance, Frank has already said we can have a partnership, and a partner can refer clients to us, right? Now, I just want to explain something that this how Frank described it. Actually, at the beginning, the only way at the beginning to get clients is for you directly to acquire them. And partnerships and referrals can come only later when you become big and known, and people want to partner up with you and they want to refer people to you because they're proud to even say they don't know you, right? But I think many times people, because it sounds so amazing saying, I have a partner, and then this partner just refers people to me and we grow, and this is an amazing. This doesn't exist in real life until you become actually quite big. So at the beginning, the easiest thing to do it's actually what's most difficult, is that you go out. I'm not saying you need to do it personally, but you can do it through, so today it's actually on social media. Most of the things happen in the digital world, and you can actually do it actually through social media. You can acquire directly clients, you can post content or promote it or do something like that, right? So what I want to emphasize is actually Frank perfectly described these ways how you can acquire clients. But counterintuitively, the easiest thing to do at the beginning is the thing that's in general the most difficult. But the easiest way to get clients later on is through partnerships and referrals. This is the most difficult to achieve because you need to achieve scale and brand to get there, right? And I'll give you an example. So when I launched the market making company, my first clients were attempted. I was trying to acquire them as a client. I literally had contacts in my network, and I was texting them one by one and saying, hey, actually never ask people directly if they need a market making service. Always ask them, do you know anyone who might need a market making service, so you don't put them on the spot. They might say, oh, I'll think about it and I'll come back to you. That means they don't want to help you or they don't want to work with you. But it's much easier for them to say, yeah, I will think about it. Or if they need what you offer, they can say, yes, I need it actually. Let's talk and maybe I choose you as a service provider. But at the beginning, direct approach and go out and pitch to everyone. And I see many times companies, they focus at the beginning on partnerships And I want to tell them this will never happen. You're a nobody. Why would anybody partner up with you unless it's a unique product that nobody in the world can deliver, which is also a danger, right? If you're building a product that nobody else has built, is there even a demand? Because if there's a big demand for something, you would assume there's other people doing the products, right? So I think like these are practical examples, and all of the partnerships that I had throughout my startups, they only came a lot later when we were so big that people kind of even wanted to refer people to us. So maybe I can pause now. I don't know if this answers your question. Or
Thank you,
is
Anton. Yeah, that's great, and I think these are great questions. Guts, any follow up?
No, thank you. Lots of those is very similar working in the traditional world of funding now, that you can also not partner when you don't have a name there. Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes.
Frank, something to add from your end?
No, I was actually going to sort of home in on the first block on this diagram here, right? I think, the easiest way for any startup to acquire customers is by building community awareness, right? Is by creating a presence on the 4 platforms that we all know, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and whatever, Telegram, and putting out some content, right? Every category, I mean, every startup works in a category. That category has knowledge that not everybody has, right? So the first thing you would do is put your voice out there as a founder, right? CEO, COO, become become an influencer. I don't know that word, by the way, but become like Anton, become a thought leader. I prefer that. Thought leader, not influencer. Influencer is overused, right? Because we all have something to share, right? If you go to LinkedIn, I follow a lot of founders who are living their whole startup journey on LinkedIn. It's so refreshing. They're not talking about the product, right? They're talking about the journey they're going on as humans. And when you follow the journey, you will know about the product, right? So that's an easy way to actually gather a following very quickly. It's almost free in some cases, and then you can layer on some of the other stuff. Content marketing, it costs money. You got to create content, right? You got to create nice, flashy videos. It's all expensive, but just putting out your own generated content out there about what you do, what you're passionate about. Trust me, that's a very good starting point.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you. Anton, I've had the pleasure to actually watch you build yourself up as the thought leader you are in real life online. Yes. And I saw you had your hand up. So is there something you wanted to add on this topic maybe?
Yeah, so I mean, Frank said it so perfectly. And as he was talking, I wanted to almost close my eyes and remember when I first started in 2013, the social networks were like, you were the weird guy using the social, or a kid, using social network, like there were forums. Who remembers forums? That's where you used to communicate with people. I don't know who is as old as here. So social networks today for you as a founder give you a superpower. And the superpower is that you can reach a big amount of people for free. Now, let me just repeat what I just said. If your content is good and people watch it or read it, and then the algorithm sees that, and then he shows it to more people, and then more people watch it and read it because it's so interesting, and then he shows it to more and more people, and all of a sudden you get 10,000 views, 50,000 views, 100,000, 200, 300,000 views. You get this for free. Just to give you a clear explanation. This did not exist when we started. When we started, if you wanted to reach people in digital way, you had to pay for it. It's called paid ads, right? Mm-hmm. The social media today gives you it's like a superpower. You don't need to pay. You just need to create interesting content, which is not easy, by the way. It's very, very difficult, but you have at least an opportunity to do that. And Frank has said it today, we are in the early days of a big mega trend called building in public. So imagine that somebody is filming you every day as you go to work to build your startup. He shows you talking to your team. He shows you talking to the clients. Seeing all the failures, how you're struggling, you're like a hero, right? Going through the journey, getting better and better. Yes, first client said, yes, I want to use the product. No, actually the boss didn't approve. I cancel. Okay. And imagine it's like a movie that you're watching. You obviously you make it like a movie, but imagine you can be part of this big mega trend called building in public, where you can use social media platforms to reach a massive amount of people and potential clients and potential investors, and you can do that for free because it doesn't cost any money to do that on social media. And I still today, like, it blows my mind, like, Saqr, you said it, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and not every article goes viral. I don't want to make it sound like that, but sometimes it goes viral and it gets 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 views. And I want to like pinch myself and said, hey, 300,000 people just read my article for free. For free. I did not pay for it. Unbelievable. So I think, and we also wanted to talk a little bit about launching with trust, or building and launching with trust. Imagine you can use social media to build that trust by being transparent and honest, showing the failures, showing the success. Actually, everybody wants to read the failures and how you got out of these failures. Imagine you can do that, build that trust, and once you launch the product, you might even have a first few people who might be interested to use your product just because they like you. Just because they think it's a cool person posting all of the failures and successes on LinkedIn or Twitter, whatever you want, right?
So Anton, let me stop you there. I like you a lot on social media. What's your product? I might sign up today.
My product is a regulated product, so I have to be very cautious.
Let's talk about it.
This is also part of launching with trust. So we are formally. I'm a chief business officer at Freex. Freex is a centralized cryptocurrency exchange, but we operate out of El Salvador. So when I write, because I sit in Dubai, when I write, I can sit in any country in the world, but I live in Dubai. So when I write on LinkedIn, and if I would promote a product, I would be not doing things in line with the regulatory framework in Dubai with VARA. So that's why I'm not really promoting. You can say I'm sharing my thoughts, right? But beyond that, I don't do it because it's, I think you also wrote it somewhere here. Frank, you actually did the whole, you did the whole, I don't know why we're talking, just we can close. So I'm cautious about
you. That's why I asked you. Amazing. Saqr, any closing remarks before we move on to the next theme?
I have one, but I wanted to see, other than Guts, if we have some questions in the chat, or if we have some question from the people online. This is running a bit over than what we expected, but then Frank also did such a good job, so I think it was worthwhile spending time here. Any questions? You did. I see you're unmuted. Do you have a question?
Oh, sorry, guys. I didn't realize I was unmuted. But no, I don't have a question at this point in time. However, I would like to thank the gentleman for an excellent presentation and great insights here.
With pleasure. All right. So there's one thing that Anton said that I just wanted to touch upon just before we move on, because the matter of the fact is, he mentioned that, who's going to partner with you? No one knows who you are. And that's true 9.9 out of 10 of the times, 100%. So I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Anton. Just want to share my personal experience where many times when we started something, we went and lent on the reputation of larger, bigger entities that, knew us personally, maybe didn't know us as a business. And that can quickly become a unique selling point for us. Specifically, for example, in one of the companies that I've started as a co-founder, Crypto Oasis, we partnered with the Dubai Multi-Commodities Center. And that came very much out of a personal relationship in many ways, right? So we had a government entity that was pushing our agenda, or we were pushing their agenda for all intents and purposes, right? So yes, he's right. No one's going to partner with you when they don't know you. Having said that, there might be cases where you have a personal relationship to someone, where the stars align in a wonderful way and God is on your side, and you'll have someone large being then able to, lift you up from who's this nobody that we don't know to, oh my God, they're the partner of a government entity.
To add to that as well, right? In this new age we find ourselves in, where deep tech and AI and everything is changing the way that we live, right? there is an opportunity for startups. Two reasons. One, startups can innovate and move very quickly, right? So, with the advent of all of these AI-powered agents for writing code, startups can innovate very, very quickly. Okay. So there is an opportunity that I see where startups can solve a problem that exists in enterprise quicker than enterprise. Okay. If you solve it very well, you can actually partner with enterprise for them to bring that to their customer base. See? So they might, start off with partnering with you, but ultimately they'll acquire you. Okay. So if you're a startup who doesn't want to build for 10, 15 years, but you want to get acquired, you look for a problem that enterprises have but can't solve because they just don't get it. You solve it, and then you don't sell it to them, you partner with them for market access and growth. And then at some point, you flip it to them for a few tens of millions of dollars, and you go on to your next one. Okay. So, yes, if they won't come to you, right? They won't find you. They don't even know where you live, right? But you can be very opportunistic in the problem you're solving and then go to them to say, hey, we solved this problem for you. We know you have 4 competitors. We chose you. You want to come with us? Otherwise, we're going to the next one, right? It normally works.
And this actually works. So I can think
Yeah.
of 3, 4 examples of people actually building something with a sole purpose of getting acquired by not a entity, but by a particular entity. All right, so we're horribly over time. I don't think we're going to get through our agenda. Having said that, the next topic is something, again, very close to my heart. That I want to talk about with the guys is about launching with trust, as you can see on the screen. I want to give a bit of an introduction. I'm going to shorten this drastically and then open this up to a conversation between all of us, but really Frank, Anton, and myself, and to see if you guys have feedback. Trust has never been as important as it is today. So most recently, I've had the pleasure of advising governments well, not most recently, really for the past decade. I've been advising governments on how to figure out working with emerging technologies. And I'm very proud of the fact that I've been able to impact directly and indirectly change to regulation on a country level in 4 different countries, Pakistan being one of them, India being one of them, the UAE being one of them, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia. And with that, there's one thing that is drastically changing. And when I mean drastically, I mean it's growing in 3-digit percentage rates. It's the amount of distrust in the world. And probably the biggest accelerator of this, when you look at the numbers, was the COVID pandemic. COVID wasn't just a pandemic of health, but it was also quickly a pandemic of scams and global distrust. Now, I'm consciously saying trust without explaining it much, because you can go to cybersecurity threats, you can go to trust in government, you can go to trust in businesses, trust in media. It really is a wide-scale epidemic of mistrust around the world. Now, when we look at that, there's something called the Edelman Trust Barometer. And the Edelman Trust Barometer is something that's an entity, and they come out on a yearly basis with, how much do people trust their governments or people trust their businesses. And it's been on a stark decline around the world and a stark incline in our region, particularly UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia. People more and more are trusting people. And, people think that this is rocket science. I can tell you it's not. What this is very simply that these governments have figured out that if they want people to trust them, and obviously what works for government then quickly can be dissected into working for businesses as well, specifically to you, right? How do you build trust? And this really is something that everyone needs to start pondering on. And, I think about every relationship that you've ever built in your life, maybe your significant other, maybe your business partner, maybe your friend. How do you build trust? Well, I'll fast forward this because I promised to keep this short. technology today is a great tool to build trust. And we've just heard from Anton, and I've seen it firsthand. So Anton's always been this guy. It's not that Anton developed himself. And when I met him in 2017, 18, he was already a thought leader, someone that's out there. But, you know, for all intents and purposes, no one knew who Anton was. And here's Anton then going out there and sharing his stories, sharing his insights, and building trust. And he touched on it earlier, how technology is now the superpower that governments, particularly here in the region, are tapping into to build trust. What does that mean? It means that they're actually listening to you. It means that they're actually opening up a dialogue to define what your expectations are, and they are giving you a shared responsibility. They're making you part of that ecosystem. You are a golden visa holder, you are a business owner, you are someone that's paying taxes, you are someone that's being invited into these roundtables to share their point of view. And that will actively then shape your trust. Let's put some numbers into this. Gartner is expecting that 45% of all organizations around the world in 2025 would have been subject to mistrust, or even worse, a cyber security attack. These cyber security attacks are today estimated at somewhere around $10.5 trillion for 2025. Now, I don't know about you, but from the top of my head, I don't even know how many zeros a trillion has. So let's put this into relation. This is 9.2% of the global economy is subject to attacks of mistrust, right? And really, when you're out there as a business, the question that you should ask yourself, as much as where am I paying my salaries, how am I paying my salaries, and where's the revenue is coming from, and where my users are coming from, is how can I build trust with these people? Frank referred to it beautifully. He mentioned, you know, smart founders think about how do I acquire a user and make him come back tomorrow. And a big part about this is building trusted frameworks and trusted user audiences that trust you. And similar to how Frank referred to it, you know, 100 active great users that are trusting you and trust into your product are better than I don't know, 10,000 users that just see it and scroll on. I want to open this up because again we don't have the comfort of time on our hand. Frank, I saw you dropped something on the chat. Anton, what's your point of view on the trust situation in the world, and you know, how can founders use technology to start, you know, enabling that trust?
Frank, you want to
Anton, you want to go?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let me kick it off. Let me kick this one off, right? So I think, you know, yes, you know, we live in a world where we're very low on trust. I fully agree. Sometimes I sort of observe what's going on around the world, and you know, I personally think that, you know, we've all gone bonkers, all as in the global all. But if we talk about trust in, you know, in the ecosystems that we build as founders, I think, you know, the most important thing to me, at least, is understanding that, you know, trust is built from a place of vulnerability, right? Or shared vulnerability, right? You know, so you use COVID as an example, right? You know, COVID, you know, caused a bit of distrust, but it also brought communities together, right? Because the vulnerability was shared. If I transpose that into, you know, sort of founder building something, you need to be able to empathize with your users. You need to understand the pain that they're trying to solve, and you need to communicate your understanding of that pain. And that's where I talked about, you know, interviewing real users and understanding where they're coming from. Because as humans, we want to be heard, right? I mean, Steve Jobs, you know, famously said that, you know, customers don't know what they want, right? You know, yeah, there's some level of truth in that. But I think ultimately, if your customers feel listened to, and they can share the real underlying vulnerability in their lives, that is the beginning of that trust relationship being built. The second part of it is obviously you have to follow through, right? So if you hear that vulnerability, requirements, whatever it is, you have to follow through. If you launch a product and you have customers complaining on Trustpilot, you have to follow through. You have to respond, accept, and follow through, right? So it's that communication, that vulnerability identification, that acknowledgement, and that follow through, for me, is the ingredient, or what part of the ingredients required to start to build trust. Trust takes time to build. It's lost in a second, right? So that's another thing to think about, right? So we should be very mindful that, trust is not a point in time. It's an ongoing thing. You keep building trust. It's almost like a cookie jar, right? Every trusting activity you participate in, you put a cookie in the jar. Every time you make a mistake, you take a cookie out of the jar. Once your jar is empty, you lose your customer, right? So with that, I'll hand over to Anton to lay on top of that. Thank you.
Yeah, so really, Saqr, I have to say you really said it perfectly, that today, I think we all feel it, like there is definitely less trust as you go around the world and you see what's happening and you see how many of the stakeholders are behaving, and the output of their behavior doesn't inspire many times trust, right? And we are blessed to be in the region where I have to say that from my experience, the trust in the institution is extremely strong. The trust in the leadership is extremely strong. And because of that, then the people and the economy and the community benefits a lot. Now, putting that in context as well, what's happening with AI, I definitely think that trust is going to be challenged even further in the future, right? Because just for pure reason, because you will not know what's real, what's not real. I mean, what's not, right, when it's Anton or when it's not Anton or some other AI talking, right? So we have to keep that in mind as well. Like you as founders, as builders, are going to be challenged even further because of AI. Are you using AI when people thought it was actually you? Are you sending emails to your investors where they think it's very personalized because you congratulate their daughter for having a birthday, but it was actually AI who picked it up, right? And now he's drafting the email, right? So that's how I would say it. Now, something very interesting that I have learned, how I have earned many times trust, was actually in the difficult moments. You don't earn a lot of trust when everything is amazing, when it's party time. You earn trust, pardon my language, when the shit hits the fan, when it's difficult, and then how you behave, that's what puts the cookie in the cookie jar, as I think Frank has said it, right? And I'll give you an example, like when that happened. So when I was fundraising at one point, I had the investor and he said, everything is great and we love you. I mean, they knew me. I was good colleagues, friends, actually. And they signed the term sheet, and I was waiting money to land for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days. And then I said, to my, investor, but a good friend, I said, but is the money coming or is not? What is, I need to pay the bills. Like the run rate, it's hitting, next week. I need to pay the bills, right? And he apologized. He said, actually, we changed our mind. It was, to his defense, it was bear market in 2019 or 2018. So it was a very horrible time period. So I understand him. They changed their mind. And they didn't invest. And it put me as a CEO and a founder in an extremely difficult situation because people were expecting their salaries to get paid. Now, what I did at that point, I called all of my existing investors and I told them the investment that I thought it was coming is not coming because of whatever reason, it's not coming. And can you invest now because we need to bridge this time period? Many said, no, Anton, I cannot invest for whatever reason, which is fine. One investor said, okay. He asked me, Anton, how much money you have in the bank account? I said 16,000. Our run rate was horrible to say it right now, almost 100 grand, So I had $16,000 in the bank account, or in crypto, or in stablecoins. And I had to pay 100K worth of bills and salaries. And the investor was asking me how much money you have. And I told him directly, I have 16,000. This is the exact number. I would not lie to him or try to make myself look stronger, because you could think, well, maybe he can take advantage of you. He will say that, well, invest, but in a very low valuation, because now is the time to press Anton. His back is against the wall, so let me press him. And he did not do that. He told me, Anton, I appreciate you told me the truth. I appreciate you told me that the investor decided not to invest, the one you thought it was going to come. I appreciate you tell me the truth. I appreciate that you tell me that you are now in a difficult situation. And then he invested and he bridged personally that amount, so we have enough time for another month. But that was the moment he told me, Anton, these are the difficult times when you earn trust with people through transparency, through honesty, and always, I mean, the investor as well, they wanted to say, okay, if I give you 100 grand now, what are you going to do about it? How I know that you're not going to come in a month and again beg me for another 100K because you are. And then, of course, we reduce the costs. And I told them, hey, this is the plan, how we're going to survive longer than 1 month. So I don't knock on your door again and beg for money, right? Which is 100 grand is a lot of money for a private individual, just to tell you. Doesn't matter who he is, it's a lot of money for a private individual.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, to repeat, my experience was always you build the trust in the most difficult moments you can imagine. That's when you build trust with people. And you be honest with them 100% and just say how it is. And many will say no. A few of them who are able to support you will support you because of that trust.
Well said, Anton. Guts, over to you.
Yeah, just as on that sense, the question originally was, is technology enabling trust or the opposite? And when I hear that right, then it does both. False news and also being so quick on content now, production, it gives false perception on yourself, but then on the other side, it's also enabling us here sitting on 3 or 4 continents and talking to each other and making these exchange. So would you agree it's both? It has to be seen. Also, I think authenticity, as being authentic, is a huge driver on all of this, and this what Frank was saying as vulnerability, I think, is a huge part of this. Just saying how it is and not bullshitting anybody, like Anton also said when you have to raise more money. Would you say that is can go in both directions?
Was that a question? Sorry, Guts.
Yeah. Also the question is technology, because that was your question, is technology enabler for trust or the opposite? And when I hear that out of you guys, then it's both. And I just wanted to ask how you see that now. Is technology driving trust or the opposite?
I think technology used right, and this is again what I've advocated for governments in the region. When technology is used right, then it can be the biggest enabler of trust. But also with that, I shared a number that more than 45% of all organizations globally, by the way, are expected to be hit with some form of technologically enabled scam as well. And I'm not even talking about the fake news and the fake content and, you know, what Anton referred to, how I suddenly feel, oh, Anton remembered my son's birthday, but really it's just an AI that's asking there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a double-edged sword. But if used right, and just to share the cycle there one more time, it's a dialogue, it's expectation setting, it's shared responsibilities, it's perception management, and really it's a continuous journey that you're going through as a government or as a business or as an institution. Then I really like how Anton put it, and I agree, it's an absolute superpower. You can do stuff with it that you in normal cases would need to fill an arena of people with to do that. But yes, of course, it's a double-edged sword. Anton, over to you.
Yeah, I think Saqr, you said it very well. And look, also just to be like very honest, like I do see that in the near future you're going to have an AI Anton talking to people. I just really see this is it will happen. Like it's like me saying I will not send emails, you know, in 2000s or 90s, or me like 10 years ago saying no, social media is bad. No, we don't do it. Like, I mean, come on, it will happen. Like you will have AI, you know, of yourself as well talking to people. But I think it's the actions that you use with the technology, right? Which then can build trust or not, right? Or enhance trust or not. So I see it but I'm optimistic by nature. So whatever technology you bring in front of me, will say, yes, we can use it to be better. But I know many people are as well very cautious when it comes to AI, right? You hear these doomsday scenarios, and I'm not an expert. I'm a user of AI. I'm not an expert in AI, but I take these things very seriously. Like when Elon Musk or Sam Altman or someone else, don't put them on the spot, says, hey, this thing is very scary. I take this very seriously. Like it is very scary. So, but I'm an optimist, and that's my problem. So I see the good in it.
That's it. That's a beautiful segue. We don't have much time left, but I think we used the time well. Having said that, I always like to go with the flow of the session. Anton, we wanted to hear from you about grow with decentralization and how that works. I'd love to hear from you, and then we have a bit of a conversation. I think it's time to wrap up already.
Yeah, I mean, just to explain how I see decentralization, you can even see it from a perspective of technology. So you don't have one source of control. You don't have one single point of failure, but you have many contributors, even on the technology side, right, that enables something that's beneficial for the society. So for instance, in the case of blockchain, in plain language, the amazing value of decentralization is that the data stored and recorded on the blockchain is the truth, is the valid, trusted truth, right? And that's why it works. That's why it's beautiful, right? Now you can have decentralization when we talk about power, right? So it's not just one person deciding, but maybe he has some advisors, right? In that context, in the blockchain industry, we talked about decentralized autonomous organization, right? So it's kind of like a quorum where people contribute to the decision-making process, right? So, which it as well can have its own benefits, right? Now, to be honest, I think there's always a trade-off there. Now, I speak very honestly. I think when you're in the early days of a startup, you need to be the dictator. You need to be, we need to make things happen very quickly. We don't have time for committees. And I say this because I have tried to do that. By the way, I have done a lot of stuff that don't work, right? So this is another one that didn't work. When you have a decision-making process where it's like a committee, we need to sit down together and agree. I think that in the early days of a startup, this is extremely dangerous because you have one shot, you don't have money, you need to do things very quickly. You almost need to become like not an evil dictator. Don't think of it like it as that, right? But a clear leader with a who is a stakeholder that is supported by his team, and we go in the direction of whatever this leader, after getting feedback from his team, very key. After you get feedback from your team, you pick a direction, you go for it, and then we see what happens. I think this is really key, and that's now in a complete contradiction with decentralization, if you want to point it out like that, right? But operational, like from a startup perspective. So, but I really want to say is that, in the early days of a startup, I would even I advise this to the startups I invest. I tell them you need to have one person making the decisions. Yes, that person can take feedback from everyone and form an opinion, but you need one direction and one leader and make it happen. And I know many people will say now, yeah, but you have the board of directors that represents the shareholders. I mean, you don't have time for this nonsense. You need to move fast. Let's create the board of directors when you get your first clients and make this a bit more solid, and then you put the governance layer around it to protect the startup from blowing up for not needed reasons,
Anton, and on this, do you think that there's like a mortal sin that people generally commit in this space?
Mortal sin?
Or maybe not go fast. I mean, in common mistakes, a mortal sin is overtly dramatic.
I don't think it's like a sin or something actually bad. It happens very often in startups. I think who you choose as your founders will either make your startup or it will kill it completely. Yeah. But you can argue this is in general, right? It's always the people make it or break it. But in an early stage company, it's founders and no one else. And I'm not talking about the developers and the people you hired. They do not do that. But founders, if they can't stand each other, almost like you have a marriage, right? If you can't,
it is a marriage. I think it is a marriage.
Yeah, it's a marriage, right? If you can't stay married, you will kill the startup. You will kill it's like your baby. You will kill it because you can't get along and you can't find solutions to problems. So mortal sin is you do a startup with people you cannot tolerate and they cannot tolerate you, and then somebody has to go. That's basically it. Or the startup will die. And in most occasions it dies, right? It's one of the biggest shocks for a startup you can have is actually the co-founders leaving. This is the biggest shock, this is brutal for a startup. And most startups that lost their founders, co-founders in the early days blew up within a very short time period. So let's say it like that, yeah.
So it's
Any
interesting
questions
about
from Frank? Yeah, of course.
yeah,
Frank,
yeah.
anything to add?
So specifically about the co-founders, right? Your founder, the co-founders, the marriage, right? You know, that has to last the life of the startup. I mean, usually in my experience and what I've seen is co-founders usually part ways very early on, right? But when they, let's say, get past, you know, a level of traction and maybe some funding, the conflicts, you know, they're there, but you know, they sort of dissipate. Where I've seen it go really wrong, and I want to hear your thoughts and everybody on the call, is when, let's say, a founder and another co-founder employ somebody else as an employee and make them a co-founder, right? Because at that point they can fire the person, right? Usually, you know, co-founders, they leave on their own accord because they fall out, right? But if you employ somebody from across the world, you know, come and be my COO and I'll make you a co-founder, you're now a named co-founder as opposed to somebody who co-founded it from birth, right? What are your experiences or what are your thoughts around how you become a co-founder, if it's from birth or if it's by invitation, and what are the things to look out for, right, when founders are going to make that decision?
Yeah, 100%. Any question from the audience? Okie dokie. All righty. So I'll tell you what, we have 5 minutes left. I won't even start the final topic. I think we had a great back and forth, and thank God Guts asked a couple of questions as well. Guts, are you in Germany or is your name just German?
Yeah, I'm currently outside Munich. Yep, south of
outside
Germany.
Munich. Beautiful area. Beautiful area. By the way, Anton and myself are fluent German speakers, but we'll do that another time. So
take you up on that one.
All right, so I want to do a quick fire round, guys, and I'm going to start. You know, don't think about the question, Frank and Anton. Just answer, and I'll answer there as well. So the first one. Who do you think is the best upcoming layer 1 blockchain project, like the new generation blockchain projects? Frank?
I'd say Base.
Base?
Okay.
Anton?
I'll say Solana.
Yeah, by Coinbase.
Solana?
Yes.
I'll say Sui.
Ooh.
Okay. Frank, Ethereum, the price prediction, and obviously no financial advice. We are not financial experts. You know, this is, you know, all of the disclaimers that will ensure that no one's, you know, comes and sues us. What do you think is ETH's price prediction by end of the year?
Oh, end of this year?
Yeah.
$5,500.
5.5. Anton?
8,000.
8,000. I want to say 6,000, but I want to hope for 10. All right. And the last one, the best country in the world 5 years from now for anything relating to tech is, Frank, what do you think?
UAE.
Anton, what do you think?
I know what I want to say. I wanted to say UAE, but I think US is back on track. I think US is back on track.
No, I'll do a Dinara says San Francisco as well. So US. I firmly believe. Udit says KSA. I firmly believe it's going to be the UAE, and I don't just say that because we're hosted in the UAE and we're in the UAE right now.
Yeah. Can I let me challenge this, Saqr, just for a second?
Yes.
Now, and it's not my argument. It's an argument from a good friend of mine, which is super smart. He said, Anton, I see you every day. You're too happy in the UAE. You need to come here to San Francisco where everybody's miserable. There's nothing else to do just to build stuff and talk to VC investors. That's why we're crushing it, you know, and then you are too happy there in the UAE, always talking how it's amazing, and that's your problem. And when he said it, I was like, damn it, he's right.
Honestly, he's probably right, but I take you out of I saw you in Switzerland and you were happy, and I saw you in the UAE and you're happy. I think slowly but surely the entire world will try to flock to the UAE, to the deterrence, obviously, for the early stage founder community, because the cost of living is just skyrocketing day after day. But I think, and no doubt, the US will remain one of the most important markets, if not even the most important market in the world. But I think the longer we're at this, the longer we're going to see people move here, not just for the regulation and the ease of doing business, but because they're realizing that the entire world is slowly but surely turning into, because San Francisco, and the designer of the office that I'm in right now is actually from San Francisco, and he was telling me how it's overhyped. It isn't zombie city. There's great stuff in San Francisco happening right now. But I really believe the safety and security element that we have here, which is quite contradicting, because the Middle East, if you think about the world, the Middle East is not the safest place in the world, whereas the UAE particularly, and I'll extend that to Saudi and Bahrain and Qatar and Oman as well, are places that are putting safety and security at the absolute forefront of everything that they're doing. And I think this with trust will probably be slowly but surely new commodities that normally we don't talk about. So yeah, UAE all the way. Singapore is also the best and friendly. Dinara, we like Singapore. Singapore is cool, but we love the UAE. Thank you to the Ignyte team for bringing us together. I think it was an absolute fun time. I was looking forward to the session with Frank and Anton. Frank, Anton, any parting words from your end?
No, I think I sort of echo your sentiment about the UAE. I think we both said it, but I think the reason why I think UAE will lead is that clarity of regulation, right, and the pace of execution. Okay, I think those two things, and I've seen it consistently for the 7 years I've been here, is what's going to create that tsunami of demand for things in the UAE from people across the world, right? Watch this space. It's accelerating, and Saqr is playing in that space, so he knows. He probably knows things that we don't know, but watch this space, right? A lot of things are going to come out of the woodwork, and they're going to be like, so let's say moths to the flame. No, let's say honeybees to pollen, right? So I think UAE has a lot going for it. It's a double-edged sword, right? Yes, prices go up because people come in and everything else, but I think it's going to become one of the best places to launch, not just for the region, but for the world.
For the world, yeah, right? I agree. Yes. Anton, parting words before I give this back to Keenan.
Yeah, I mean, first, just had a blast today, and I mean, just also to say about UAE. I mean, when you go here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Sharjah, when you meet the people, it's like this vibe, like, yeah, we can do it. We're crushing it, like everybody's, very optimistic, positive, driven. They really want to do it. They want to make it happen. You feel the hunger, like you really feel the hunger here in UAE, in the region as well. And I think that hunger, that drive, and optimism and stability that's driven by the leadership. I mean, this is a winning combination, right? And I say Silicon Valley, but I didn't want to say it. But that's why it's our job to make UAE the leader globally. So let's work on it and let's make it happen.
We'll do it. We'll do it together. Thank you, gentlemen. I give you an actual round of applause. Thank you. This was awesome. Stay tuned. Keenan has a news session that he wants to tell us about. Thank you for listening. Keenan, over to you.
Thank you, Saqr. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Anton. It was a great session. Always great to see, a group of incredible friends and incredible mentors as well as speakers being able to share this wealth of knowledge to our community. So like Saqr said, we do have another event upcoming. It's a mentor hour with Rola Diab. This will be taking place in the IFC FinTech Hive, but will also be broadcast online for those who are not in the region. So look forward to that. It's on the 22nd of August next week between 11 and 1 p.m. So look forward to that. Also, make sure if you want to learn more from them, as we did get a bit pressed for time, make sure to check their availability on Ignyte. And we will also be dropping a feedback form in the chat. Let us know some more details on how you thought this went. But at the end of the day, thank you very much for all of you attending. And, we will also share Frank's presentation. But thank you, everyone. And also make sure to check the recording if you want to go over it again on the YouTube channel.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thank
guys.
you guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.
Cheers.
Bye bye. Thanks.
Bye bye.
Amazing. Cheers.